Andrew Romanella.
Oh, what's going on, everybody? It's the Rome Show on the road here, 12OZSports.com, broadcast live on YouTube, X, and Roku TV. Andrew Romanella here, off-site, on-site in Park City, Utah, off-site from my normal location of New Jersey, but that doesn't mean we don't still bring you the latest and the greatest from the Rome Show here on 12OZ Sports. We remind you got to follow the show on all the social medias, the Rome Show 1. That's Instagram, Facebook, X, TikTok, 12OZ Sports, Instagram, X, Facebook, youtube.com/12OZ Sports, Roku TV. Head to the app section, download 12OZ Sports. Anywhere you can find 12OZ Sports, the Rome Show will be there. We got a good show for you today, January 9th, 2025, as I get ready to shred some more pow on the snowboard to my right. We want to get you right for the first game of the semifinals of the college football playoff. That is correct. Notre Dame will take on Penn State in the, I believe it's the Orange Bowl, the Capital One Orange Bowl in Miami. That game will take place at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I have to say that out loud now because when I was preparing for the show, I'm like, wow, they're playing this game at 5:30? Finally, they're listening to the fans. They're not playing games so late. This is so exciting. And then I'm like, oh, wait, I'm in Utah. It's mountain time. So that must mean it's 7:30 when this game is being played in the state of Florida. Nonetheless, though, Notre Dame, Penn State, we break it down for you. James Franklin had some comments about the NCAA and more specifically college football's landscape, which I found interesting. I want to play those comments for you because recently the Rome Show has been talking a lot about NCAA sports and how they are trending quickly to being professional sports. A lot of that conversation started with the Bill Belichick signing with University of North Carolina. But nonetheless, okay, James Franklin had some comments while in his interview getting ready for the Capital One Orange Bowl that I thought were very interesting. And I wanted to break those down right before or during we break down the game on Thursday night. Before we dive into all of that, it's a first things first scenario on a serious note here on the Rome Show. I think everybody listening to the show should have an idea of what is going on in the state of California. So we did not want to start the show today without taking a quick second to send some prayers to the families, the communities, the people of the state of California that are being affected by these crazy wildfires. The winds have gotten up to 100 miles per hour. Having lived in Southern California, something called the Santa Ana winds do exist. I've been caught in those before, never to this extreme. But in the sports world of this, the Los Angeles Kings and the Calgary Flames game last night, Wednesday night, was postponed. There is a National Football League game supposed to be played in Los Angeles, first round of the postseason on Monday. That is the Minnesota Vikings traveling to the Los Angeles Rams. According to league reports, the National Football League is monitoring the situation in California to make the most appropriate decision for that game. The people of California and their safety is the most important thing. Football, sports in general is, so far down the list, it's ridiculous. But nonetheless, we all do understand it's a business and they have the decisions to be made. And then finally, the last part of the sports part of this conversation will be the Lakers and the Clippers. So a lot to be figured out from those sports teams. But the most important thing is a thank you to the first responders who are out there putting their lives on the line, trying to put this crazy wildfire out. Secondly, prayers and thoughts to the families in California and the communities affected by these wildfires. Over 15,000 acres have burned so far, and nearly 1,000 plus structures, and sadly, some civilian casualties as well. So, what we're going to do here on the Rome Show, as we normally do when we get into the serious part of the world, we say it all the time. When we're talking about sports, we are in the candy store. We are very fortunate to spend 30 minutes daily talking sports with the people out there. So when we get hit with real tragedy, as we have early and often in 2025, we want to be respectful of that here on the Rome Show. So we will take a quick break. I would like to do a quick moment of silence, just a quick 3-4 second prayer, thought, whatever you'd like out there for the people affected still by what happened in New Orleans last week and now the ongoing fires in California. After the break, we will come back on the Rome Show. We will talk some snowboarding and college football. Back after this.
BetUS.com is the official place to place your bets and support 12-ounce sports. All you have to do is go to BetUS.com and type in the promo code 120Z and you'll instantly get a deposit bonus. This is America's favorite sportsbook. And remember, always gamble responsibly.
All right, we are back here on the Rome Show, 12ozsports.com, broadcasting live, YouTube, X, Roku TV. I am Andrew Romanella. I have you for the next 20 minutes or so here on the Rome Show, and we have a lot to talk about, including a lot of college football. But first things first, on the mountain, I wanted to give the people an update on our snow adventures here in Utah. Yesterday, I got the opportunity to spend some time with my father's really good friend, Paul Vance. We went on the Canyons Mountain of Park City, Utah, and we collected some miles. Now, I don't know how many people out there are big skiers or snowboarders, but if you are a big skier or snowboarder, then you probably have an idea of what's been going on in Park City over the last few weeks. There's actually been a strike on the ski patrol. So unfortunately, it's been very, very difficult to get a lot of the runs open. It's been very difficult to get a lot of people on the mountain. Well, we come out every single year. This is probably, I want to say, my 10th year now in Park City, my 5th as a snowboarder, I believe. And we go run after run after run, 3, 4, 5 straight days. And this year it was looking a little gloomy, but yesterday, right before we got on the mountain, the strike ended. Now, it didn't mean that all the runs were open, but Paulie and myself were able to get to 14,000 feet of elevation, our highest run starting at 9,000 feet of elevation. We clocked 24.8 miles worth of skiing / snowboarding yesterday, on Canyons Mountain in Park City. So today we will go to the Park City main part of the Park City Mountain. And you see my little pillow right here, letting you know exactly where we are. Rome Show on the road. So we're hoping to clock a little bit more. My brother-in-laws joined me yesterday. Hopefully my nephew Nico might join me on the Friday pod if we have some time. Either way, excited to get out there and log it. I'd love to know if you're a skier or a snowboarder out there and where you go skiing or snowboarding. I've been to Utah most of my life. I've been to Vermont, and I've been to a little bit in Big Bear, California. So much for me to explore: Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, Lake Tahoe, other places of California as well, probably other places of the Northeast I haven't even tried. But hit me up, the Rome Show 1, on all the social medias. I'd love to hear some recommendations on what you believe the best skiing or snowboarding location is. Or you comment live on the show, all right, youtube.com/12OZ Sports or X 12OZ Sports. If you're watching live on either of those two, you can comment live on the show. If you're watching right now, you'll see on your screen the remainder of the college football playoff. You have Texas and Ohio State. That will take place on January 10th. That would be tomorrow, Friday. But tonight, you have Penn State and Notre Dame in the Capital One Orange Bowl from Miami. That game will kick off at 7:30 p.m. Again, if you are looking at my screen, it says 5:30 p.m. because we did this research in the mountain, so Mountain Standard Time. I know it threw me off before the show as well. You just need to know it's at 7 p.m. primarily on the East Coast, 7:30. As you start to trend more towards the middle of the country, it's probably 6:30. As you trend towards the mountains, probably 5:30. Then as you're on the West Coast, it's 4:30. I shouldn't have to explain that to you, but this is what we do here on the Rome Show. So right now, let's break down Penn State and Notre Dame. And there's a lot to look at in this football game, okay? First, I want to give you the breakdown of all of the statistics and the information about both teams. Then I want to give you the comments from James Franklin on where he believes college football should be going, and then I'll give you my picks as we finish up the show. So here is the deal. Notre Dame comes into this game number 2 in the nation in opponents' points per game. So points given up per game at 13.6. They are 8th in the nation in opponents' yards per game at 295.4. On the flip side, Penn State almost identical to Notre Dame in both of these categories. They are number 7 in the nation in opponents' points per game at 15.8. So yeah, it's 2 more points, but it is nearly the same in my book. Really good top 10 defense. And then opponents' yards per game, actually Penn State is better in this category, number 6 in the nation, 288.8. And when you look up and down this matchup, Penn State versus Notre Dame, okay, I took 6 different statistical categories: points per game given up and points per game scored, opponents' yards per game and your own yards per game, and then rushing yards given up and passing yards given up. So those 6 categories were what I looked at as I was breaking down this football game. And when you look at it, okay, Notre Dame is top in 3 categories, and Penn State is top in 3 categories. Notre Dame's is top in opponents' points per game scored, and opponents' yards per game, passing yards per game given up. And Penn State is tops in opponents' yards per game themselves collected, and then opponents' rushing yards per game. So I think it is a stacked matchup, and it's very close. Notre Dame is favored in this contest by 1.5. So again, another college football playoff matchup in the 12-team playoff that has a higher seeded team. In this scenario, Notre Dame, I'll pop it back up on the board for you, the 7 seed favored over Penn State, the 6 seed. And I think, and as you look up top, Ohio State, the 8 seed, favored over Texas, the 5 seed. I think that's a slight indictment on where we have seeded these teams in the 12-team playoff. I don't know if indictment is too harsh. I don't know if I'm fully wrong here. I'm open for discussion. I'd love to know the thoughts of the people. But if you look across the board of this 12-team playoff, the team that is ranked lower has been favored in majority of the games. So that's got to tell me that our ranking system is not appropriate, because in the history of time, majority of the teams that are higher ranked in any category, whether that's top 25 in the nation playing each other, or it's a reseeding in the postseason 1 through 8, doesn't matter, right? And I know there's some exceptions to those rules, but to look across the board and almost have 80+% just off the top of my head, and I know for a fact it's at least that. I think the entire quarterfinals was lower seeds ranked higher than the higher seed. I picked all higher seeds as underdogs in the quarterfinal, I believe. So at the end of the day, I think it is a slight indictment on the ranking system in the college football playoff. But we'll worry about that on another date, and we'll dive back into Penn State and Notre Dame. To finish the statistics for you, there's 2 areas where I feel like each team has an advantage over the other. For Penn State, it's the rushing defense. They only give up 100 rushing yards per game. They are a stout rushing defense, and they have a really good defensive line comparative to Notre Dame, who gives up nearly 130 rushing yards per game. So on the offensive side for Penn State, you're looking to exploit that from the running standpoint. Then Notre Dame's advantage is going to be in the passing yards, not by a lot, though, okay? You got Notre Dame 167 given up each game, where Penn State's given up nearly 188 per game. I don't know if that's enough of a difference to exploit. The other difference I noticed, not crazy, but yards per game collected on offense, Notre Dame 24th in the nation, 436. Penn State 24th in the nation at 436. Notre Dame 48th in the nation at 406. Notre Dame scores nearly 3.5 more points a game than Penn State. So like I said, you go down all the numbers and you look at it and you go, this is almost a nearly identical game. And it's a very hard game to pick. I also think that's why it's essentially a pick 'em at -1.5 in the favor of Notre Dame. So what we'll do is we'll give you James Franklin's comments right now on the state of college football and where he believes it should go so that the college football playoff is appropriately, maybe not seeded like I'm saying, but probably has the appropriate teams in it, and there's the appropriate pathway to get there. I think the word that he's probably looking for is the fairest pathway across the board for every team in the nation. I'll let James Franklin tell you. Here's Penn State's head coach, James Franklin, with Notre Dame's head coach, Marcus Freeman, in their presser ahead of the Capital One Orange Bowl tonight.
Obviously, you talk about just the differences between our two programs and conferences. I think it should be consistent across college football. I think, again, this is no knock at Coach or Notre Dame, but I think everybody should be in a conference. I think everybody should play a conference championship game, or no one should play a conference championship game. I think everybody should play the same number of conference games. I was a head coach in the SEC. I've been a head coach in the Big Ten. I was in the SEC when the whole conversation was whether to go to 8 or 9 conference games. We voted, all the coaches voted against going to 9 games. The commissioner agreed and kept it at 8. I think it was one of the better decisions as SEC made. The Big Ten went to 9 games. And, you know, I was not a math major at East Stroudsburg, but just the numbers are going to make things more challenging if you're playing one more conference game. So I just think things need to be consistent across college football.
So what Coach Franklin's saying here, from my standpoint, is he believes that every team should be in a conference, okay? Obviously stating, I'm not throwing a jab at this guy, but Notre Dame's not in the conference. And in my opinion, how is it fair that they don't have to go through a grueling conference schedule? They can kind of pick and choose their schedule every single year, not have to possibly lose in a conference championship game, which could then cause them to be knocked out of the college football playoff. And I like what he said. The best part about what he said, at least in my opinion, is, hey, it's whether it's everyone should play a conference game or everyone shouldn't play a conference championship game. It's not that it should be the way it is for me. If what we think Notre Dame is as an independent team that plays a primarily ACC schedule without being in the ACC, if we think that's the way we should do it, that's fine with me, right? James Franklin's point is, I just want to see it fair across the board. The thing about the SEC, the 8, the 9 conference games, you know what? That's been different across the course of NCAA athletics everywhere, D1, D2, D3. Every conference treats it differently. That's the conference's choice. So I'm not necessarily going to go down and say, oh, everyone's got to be 8 or everyone's got to be 9. I like the idea of everybody's in a conference. Everybody has to play for a conference championship game, and then we roll from there. I think there's some other stuff that I read was he wants a college football playoff commissioner that is not associated with school or a conference, which I completely agree with. Part of my complaints about the college football ranking committee is the guy that's the chairman of it is the is the AD at Michigan. How can you have an objective view if you are in the trenches in a college athletics program or you're in the trenches of a conference? So I completely agree with that. And I've seen a lot of hate all right, on X for against James Franklin. Oh, it's ridiculous. Oh, this is absurd. Listen, his point being, how can we have a committee of people that aren't objective, okay, because they do work for institutions and conferences, ranking the top 12 teams when the landscape for each of those teams is not similar. Therefore, you can't come to the appropriate conclusion of who deserves to be in the 12-team playoff that should be playing for the national championship game if you don't have the same guidelines across the board. And here's my rebuttal to anyone that says it's stupid to change it. Look at professional sports. Does the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, the MLB, do they not play the same amount of division games? Are they playing a different amount of conference games? Am I missing something? Is it like the AFC North plays 7, the NFC East plays 3? No, it's similar. Okay? So essentially what James Franklin is stating is, if you want this thing to be like professional sports, make it professional sports. Don't let them float around in their own world. There's no one singular basketball team in the NBA that makes their own schedule. That doesn't make any sense. So I do understand what you're saying, right? Okay, yeah, I get it. It's a nuanced thing. College athletics, independent, whatever. No, that's out the window now. We are in professional sports territory when it comes to Division I football. That's a fact. Go look at the payouts, man. Conferences are getting $40 million plus. Notre Dame itself gets that entire payout check, where all these other schools, they have to distribute that money across other teams in their conference that aren't even good. So Notre Dame gets to keep the $40 million because they decided to not join the Big Ten, the ACC, the SEC, the Big 12. But Penn State's got to share all their money with everyone else in the Big Ten. That makes no sense. So I get what James Franklin is saying. If you're going to change the landscape, change the landscape. And change the landscape to make it fit the parameters of what you're trying to do. Case in point, what we talked about before, the ranking, the amount of teams that are ranked lower, that are favored above higher ranked teams, and winning those games. That tells you everything you need to know about the way the system is set up. I'm not going to go on a whim here and say James Franklin's my most favorite person in college sports either. But in this scenario, I get what he's trying to say. If the landscape of college sports is going to change, we need to change the landscape of college sports so that this NIL world, this 12-team football playoff world, and the competition level for every team is equal. So that then whoever decides that they're in has the same parameters for each team that can make it. The Rome Show on the road, 12ozsports.com, YouTube TV, X, Roku TV, so many places. Download them all. Follow 12OZ Sports. We're going to take a quick time out. When we come back, we're going to pick this game right here. Notre Dame is favored by 1.5. The total in this game is 44.5. We will go daily bananas, and we will pick Notre Dame versus Penn State. The Rome Show, 12ozsports.com. Back after this commercial break.
Welcome to MyBookie. You're ready to create an account and start making money, and we're here to help. And remember, you can get a bonus of up to $1,000 on your first deposit. Now you're ready to bet. Just go to mybookie.ag, visit the sportsbook, click on your bet, and input the amount you want to risk or win in the bet slip. Yes, it's that easy. Just remember, at MyBookie, you play, you win, you get paid.
Need tickets to that next event? Well, at 12-Ounce Sports, we've got them with soccer anywhere in the world. Tickets to any venue, any sport. Want to go to NCAA or NFL football matches? We've got them.
Yeah.
Baseball at every level. Every Power 5 matchup is available. Don't forget, costumes and paint are optional. What's that? You want to go to Broadway? We have those too. Want to jam out? Every concert, every artist. That's right, at 12 Ounce Sports, we've got the tickets for less. 12ozsports.com/tickets. That's 12ouncesports.com/tickets.
It's a Rome Show. Yeah, the Rome Show, 12ozsports.com. YouTube, X, Roku TV, Andrew Romanella. Few minutes left in the show. January 9th, 2025, coming to you from Park City, Utah. If you're wondering why I'm holding my phone over here and not next to the microphone like I did on the intro, the frequency on the travel live studio here is cooking with the phone, so I couldn't listen to that in the earphones anymore. So I wanted to save the drums so I could give the people my picks coming up here Thursday night college football edition. So here's the deal. I told you before the break all of the statistics. Both of these teams are top 10 in the nation in defense. Both of these teams are top 25 in the nation in offense. However, only one of these teams is top 5 in scoring offense, and that is the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. They are favored by 1.5 in this game. Okay, before I put my stamp on this thing, one small note as to why I'm doing this is because of what James Franklin said. I'm not saying that's bulletin board material. I'm not saying I disagree. I'm actually saying I agree. I love that he said it, but it's one of those things where it usually comes back to bite you, even if you don't mean any harm by it. Even if it's right what you said, it's one of those things where Notre Dame's just going to have all of this ammo now, and somehow, some way, it's going to turn into them playing really good football. That doesn't mean it's going to be a blowout, though. I think this is going to be a tight contest. So let's start with the 44.5, the total on this game. I'm going to go under. The combined total between the two of these teams when it comes to an average is 29.4 points per game given up. I think both of these teams in the first half are going to be very stout defensively. You'll see some adjustments, maybe some more offense in the second half is my prediction. Maybe we're looking at something like 20-17, 21-17, something in that range. So I'm going to go under the 44.5. I believe defense travels, especially in the postseason. Then I'm going to take Riley Leonard for 2 touchdowns. I think when Notre Dame comes away with this victory, I think Riley Leonard may not have the most reckless stats you've ever seen, but good enough stats to win this football game for Notre Dame. So give me Riley Leonard, 2 touchdowns, and then finally, I will take Notre Dame at the 1.5 favor. I just truly believe that I've never fully believed in Penn State. Sorry to my Penn State brethren out there. I don't mean that as a slight. It's just one of those things. I have 2 teams that I don't fully believe in going up against each other. But Notre Dame, in the last 14 weeks, has continued to answer the bell after their atrocious loss. And I'm not saying Penn State's had any really bad losses, but they lost to Ohio State and they lost to Oregon. And usually it's 1 or 2 1 or 2 losses a year against top teams. Well, after James Franklin seemed to me have a lot of confidence, I saw him on Twitter too, tweeting some stuff out too. I'm like, this is trending in the direction of Notre Dame. So that's why I'm going to give you my picks like that. So I got Notre Dame minus the 1.5. I got Riley Leonard 2+ TDs, and I got 44.5 on the under. And I got to get out of here because I got to go hit the mountain again and shred some of that cow. Andrew Romanella, The Rome Show on the road, Park City, Utah. Check out the show wherever you get your podcast. It's there. Go to 12ouncesports.com. It's there. Or youtube.com/12ozsports. It's there too. Back on Friday, January 10th for the last day of the week. Join us at 7 a.m. Andrew Romanella saying peace. Thank you for listening.